No one expected this twist in the Formula One world, Max Verstappen's name being tied once again with Mercedes. And this time, it's more than just whispers. A well-known journalist with reliable links inside the paddock has reported fresh insights that are turning heads. Add to that the fact that George Russell has reportedly declined a contract extension, the same type that was once given to Lewis Hamilton, and the entire situation is now even more tense. This development raises one big question. Is Mercedes now shifting focus toward Verstappen with serious intent? And if not, then what strategy are they really holding on to, especially as the 2026 regulation changes get closer? The discussions around Verstappen and the Brackley-based team refuse to fade away. And it's not just casual talk anymore. Until recently, many brushed these links off as typical F1 drama, just paddock noise. But the tone shifted when both Toto Wolff and Russell made statements that hinted something bigger could be on the table. And then came Eric Van Haren, a journalist well connected to Verstappen's circle, claiming that, while the interest from Mercedes is certainly real, no formal offer has been presented yet. Van Haren emphasized that there's been no movement compared to the previous week, no new proposals, no acceptance, just steady interest. That lack of change may sound like nothing, but in Formula One, sometimes silence speaks louder than words. It's all about timing, patience, and waiting for the right pieces to fall into place. The decision regarding Verstappen's future isn't just a business call for teams, it's personal. Only Max himself will shape his own path forward. From his viewpoint, there's a long road ahead before deciding whether staying with Red Bull in 2026 is the right call. And frankly, that's where things begin to look shaky for the Austrian team. The signs of strain within Red Bull have been hard to ignore. Seasoned personnel have stepped away, and since Adrian Newey announced his departure during the Miami weekend last year, the car's performance has come under scrutiny. The once dominant package doesn't look as unstoppable anymore. And internally, questions are piling up. Leadership at Red Bull isn't immune either. Christian Horner is facing growing criticism, and some feel the warnings from Jos Verstappen are now playing out in real time. If Horner stays in charge, does that make Red Bull the right environment for Max beyond 2025? That's the kind of dilemma Max is likely thinking about in private, even if he hasn't said it out loud. So why is this whole Mercedes-Max connection still making headlines if there hasn't even been a proper offer? The answer is simple. When a talent like Verstappen is even remotely available, every team, especially one with Mercedes' stature, starts weighing their options carefully. Verstappen is not just a fast driver. He's a game changer. Teams would bend over backward to have someone like him in their garage. And while it's obvious Red Bull is still in contention to keep Max, there are only a few teams he would seriously consider. Mercedes is certainly one of them. It's also worth noting that Mercedes might be playing the long game here. With new regulations coming in 2026, there's a strong belief that they'll be ready with a very competitive car. If that prediction comes true, Verstappen may start questioning his decision, especially if Red Bull continues to slip. That's probably why Russell was offered a 1-year plus 1 extension, with the second year being at the team's discretion. It leaves the door slightly open for someone like Verstappen to walk through. These developments aren't just media speculation, they're being backed by major sources. Sky Sports F1 Italia initially broke the story, and it didn't take long for their UK counterparts to support the claims. According to their report, Verstappen has agreed to some terms with Mercedes, but not everyone on the Mercedes board is on the same page yet. That hesitation is what's keeping the situation in a holding pattern. Toto Wolff addressed this uncertainty with careful wording. He emphasized that internal approval from all key stakeholders is still pending. It's not just about signing a big name, it's about aligning every decision with the team's values and long-term goals. Speaking to the press, Wolff explained that respect for the people within the team and transparency during the process are essential. That includes engineers, management, and the drivers themselves. Wolff clarified that he doesn't want to delay or make any driver wait unnecessarily, but he also stressed that no hasty decisions will be made. We're in July, he said, and talks are active, but before the summer break, we'll need clarity. And then there's George Russell, who, as of now, still doesn't have a contract for 2026. According to Formula Uno, he turned down the same type of extension offered to Hamilton, a deal with one secure year and the second dependent on the team's choice. For Russell, who has been groomed by Mercedes for years, that kind of uncertainty isn't appealing. He's looking for stability, something Mercedes doesn't seem eager to promise just yet. This hesitance is adding more weight to the Verstappen rumor. If Russell isn't locked in, and if Verstappen is genuinely interested, then the door is wide open for a potential reshuffle, whether it happens now or after 2026. It's clear that the tension is building, and fans can feel it, even if Verstappen doesn't switch teams immediately. Mercedes could use the 2026 regulations as a showcase. If they manage to build a fast, reliable car under the new rulebook, it might be enough to pull Max in for 2027. That's why they're keeping their options flexible, even offering Hamilton and Russell short-term deals. It's not about who they already have, it's about who might be available soon. The structure of Russell's contract proposal, the same one Lewis received, says a lot. Mercedes seems reluctant to commit long-term to anyone, just in case a driver like Verstappen becomes fully available. But here's where things get tricky. George Russell is not a rookie. He's a Mercedes product, someone they invested in heavily. He waited patiently at Williams, endured 3 seasons in an uncompetitive car, and then almost won on his first outing with Mercedes back in Sakir 2020, had it not been for a pit stop disaster. Since joining the senior team in 2022, Russell has proven himself, adding a victory to his name and constantly pushing the car, even when it wasn't capable of winning races. And now, with performance between teams becoming more balanced, he's closing the gap to Verstappen in the standings. The idea that Mercedes would push him aside now raises eyebrows, especially when they've preached loyalty and long-term planning. Nobody's questioning Verstappen's value. If he becomes available, you explore that opportunity. But Max himself has hinted that he might not stick around in F1 for long, possibly walking away before his early 30s. Compare that to Russell, who's deeply committed and still has a decade of racing ahead. If you're running Mercedes, do you risk stability for a short-term bet? That's the kind of debate Mercedes management is having behind closed doors. And the decisions they make now will shape their team for years to come. If Mercedes truly decides to go after Verstappen and bring him in, the most likely outcome would be a driver swap scenario. That means George Russell might find himself heading toward Aston Martin, or even Red Bull, 2 teams that would gladly welcome a driver of his caliber. In fact, there have already been quiet conversations between Russell and Christian Horner, just in case things shift unexpectedly. The possibility of a trade isn't just speculation anymore. It's becoming a calculated strategy, and Russell isn't ignoring the situation either. His recent comments make it clear that he knows what's happening behind the scenes. He stated, "If Mercedes wants to return to winning ways, they need the best drivers, best engineers, and best crew. So, it's only natural that talks with someone like Verstappen are taking place. But as long as I perform, there's no reason for concern." It's a subtle but strong message. He's not backing down, but he's well aware of the stakes. This creates a massive dilemma for Mercedes. On one hand, they have a loyal, fast, and young driver in Russell. On the other, a 4-time world champion who could elevate them instantly, but only for a few more years. And let's not forget the tension that could come with putting 2 alpha drivers in the same garage. Mercedes has lived through that chaos before Rosberg versus Hamilton in 2016, and they may not be willing to repeat that kind of internal conflict. There's also Kimi Antonelli in the pipeline. The young talent everyone is watching. Once he matures, he won't be interested in being anyone's backup, not even Verstappen's. So even if Verstappen joins, the long-term structure of the team will need another reshuffle soon after. And what about Verstappen? For now, he's focused on the season ahead, avoiding too much media noise. He knows the value he holds on this grid. As he put it, "I don't need to say much. The more I speak, the more stories come out. I'll decide my path when the time is right." So, what does the future really hold? Will Mercedes roll the dice on Verstappen and risk unsettling their current foundation? Or will they stay loyal to Russell and invest in long-term consistency? Only time will tell. Let us know your thoughts, and where do you see these stars landing by 2026?